First off, this video assumes you already have intermediate knowledge of theory and harmony. I want to explain all the terms, general theory, scales, functions of diatonic, harmony, etc. I will be analyzing a song by pianist and composer James Williams in order to talk about a couple of harmonic concepts in my own way of talking about stuff. What does that mean? I like humor. Just going to put that out there. Those harmonic concepts are parallel harmonic structure and color tones. Some terms will be highlighted in case you want to take note and look them up later. A subplot, I suppose if you want to call it that, would be just to point out how elegantly James uses those concepts in his music. James Williams was a dynamic pianist and prolific composer who made his mark in the jazz world between 1977 and his untimely passing in 2004. His music spans a wide range of expression, from the fiery and dazzling to the simple and soulful. You might say this song I'll be talking about today belongs to the latter. For more background on the elegant Mr. Williams, please check out my other videos on James, featuring some of the great musicians that knew him and worked with him over the years. James's song Self-Esteem is one of the songs that he did with one of his projects that he called Intensive Care Unit, or ICU. This band recorded and released 2 albums in 1996 and 1998. I was blessed to be a part of this group as vocalist, doing some performances with him later in 2003. For this project, James had lyrics written by another pianist and composer, Pamela Baskin-Watson. It's a song of encouragement, urging us to believe in ourselves and in our dreams, not to be defeated by circumstances. But we're focusing on harmonic structure today. Life is hard. Woo! Hold up. Did you hear that lyric? Life is hard. Oh, come on now. Tell the truth and shame the devil. Okay, sorry. Harmonic structure. Let's go. Life is hard, but don't let life pass you by. You can change your world if you try. Don't let anybody change your mind. Keep reaching up towards the sky. Chase your dreams. You've got to believe. It's a standard AABA form with sort of a tag on the last A section. The melodic structure of the A section gives us 4 small phrases, each having the same basic shape but making subtle variations within the chords each time. The first thing to point out here in the A section is the relationship between the melody notes on top and the bass, or roots on the bottom of each chord. This relationship is the interval of a fourth, except for one instance in the middle and the last note of the entire phrase. When I say a fourth, technically it's actually the 11th in the scale of each chord. Same thing note-wise, but different. Confused yet? Here are the 4 melodic phrases that make up the A section of the song, just showing the top and bottom voices. Check out how the third note of each of these phrases are like targets that land on a pleasingly surprising sound. For the first 3, it's the same melody note, but with the chords changing underneath it, changing the meaning of that note, so to speak. Of course, there are other notes happening in the melody, but we're focusing on the first 3 beats of each phrase, because that's where the chords are changing. It's the harmonic rhythm. By the way, James's original key for this song was a half step higher. As for the chords, shown here in their most simple form, stacked in thirds, we see that the first 2 chords follow in the exact same relationship to the melody notes. They keep the same chord qualities. In other words, these first 2 are minor 11th chords with the 9th added, the melody note being the 11th note of the scale of each chord. We see that all the other voices in between are moving together, keeping the same chord structure. We call this planing, or constant structure, or parallel harmony. The third chord, even though it's not a minor 11th like the others, still has the melody as the 11th. This chord could have been a minor chord like the others, but James did a sweet variation that brightens things. To be clear, the first three chords taken together may not fully constitute planing or strict consonant structure, but it is parallel harmony in the general sense that all the harmonizing notes follow the direction of the melody, even with the one G that falls out of the structural pattern. Now, the strict parallel harmony, where the chordal structure stays exactly the same, only happens a couple of times here in the A section. But I'm going to talk about parallelism for a minute, because I like the way it do what it do. By the way, James uses these parallel structures more extensively in his masterpiece, Alter Ego. And once you become aware of it, you start finding this parallel action in other jazz tunes. Another simple example is Horace Silver's Silver Serenade, for instance. So, with normal functional harmony, you'll find that the underlying harmony notes in the chords that accompany the melody follow a certain non-melodic path of voice leading that serves the purpose of leading away or to resolutions, and typically back to the tonic, the one chord, the key of the song. This is a very general and basic explanation. The music typically follows the gravity of the key of the song, but the constant structure of parallel harmony allows all the notes in the accompanying chords to be just as lyrical as the top melody note, and they sometimes sing independently of whatever key you're in.
Wait, what?
Sounds crazy, right? I don't mean they all sing different songs. They sing the same song, but in their own key.
Ooh.
The music is no longer diatonic, where all the accompanying harmony notes obey the scale and gravity of the tonic, one chord. It gets away from the
tyranny of the one.
Imagine 6 voices singing in 6 different keys. What? Well, no. Yeah, like at a birthday party when folks start singing happy birthday in all kinds of keys, but better. Happy birthday to you. Anyway, so before I made a statement about notes being pleasingly surprising. Why pleasing? Why surprising? You might also remember that I used the term relationship. Almost all of the melody notes in this A section, and the whole tune for that matter, are not part of the 4-note chord structures that accompany them. A basic 4-note 7th chord is like a core family unit. Any other note is an added note. For instance, the first melody note is not in the core family of this chord.
Like a stepchild.
Okay, stepchild. Same for the second melody note. And for the D7 sus, the melody being the suspended third is technically a member of this chord, but it's
like a special needs child.
Yeah, special needs child with unresolved issues. It wants to resolve to become a third of the chord, and that's what gives these notes their power and beauty. They're restless, they want to move. These added notes, these extensions are called added notes and extensions. But they're also called color tones and tensions because they add a little dissonance to the sound, even if mild, and I believe emotional power. So in other words, the 4-note 7th chord provides the essential information to give you the tonality and harmonic function of the harmonic situation at hand, you dig? And the other added notes are just
stepchildren.
Nope, I was going to say
misfits.
No.
Bastards. Neighbor's kid won't take his bad home.
Man, what's wrong with you? I was going to say icing on the cake. These added notes really do add color to the sound. I can remember decades ago when I first heard the song I Didn't Know What Time It Was by Rodgers and Hart, especially the way Wayne Shorter played it with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. But it didn't matter which version it was, I always felt some kind of way when I heard it. Really touched. I can't tell you what the feeling was, but
typical guy, not in touch with his feelings.
Now looking back at the song, I'm seeing that the melody notes that start the first 2 measures are 11ths sitting on top of minor chords. Tell you, them 11ths always get me. So to step back and look at the whole A section, we have the 4 phrases that are basically the same melodically, but each treated a little differently with the underlying harmony, changing the color, so to speak, of those melody notes. And the last phrase follows the pentatonic scale on down to the 1, the tonic, the home keynote, putting a period on a definitive statement. Good, solid composition. You can if you try. Just remember to hold yourself high. What? So the bridge starts with an A dominant 7. It goes on to resolve here. The chord symbol he had was F sharp triad over D, but with an A in the melody. What? And then, right away, within 1.5 beats, it goes on to a G7 sus. Eventually, I figured out that the F sharp triad over D was basically a D major 7 chord. Then I understood the progression to be a dominant 5 chord resolving to the temporary 1 major 7, jumping back up to the 4 chord. Normal stuff, right? It could very well have been this. So after the D major 7, it goes to G7 sus, the next step on its journey to somewhere, because music is always going somewhere. Then this B flat 7 sus to G7 sus. Then we jump to an E flat 7 sus, which seems totally random at first. But again, the significance is where it's going, because it leads us to the same sequence of the first 2 measures of the bridge, but a half step lower. A restatement of the theme that seems to want to lead us back towards F minor, the first chord of the A section. But then suddenly, back to A7 for a progression that will more obviously lead us back to the F minor for the last A section. Now, stepping back and looking at the entire bridge in context, what does it all mean? There's a whole lot of harmonic information there, but it all seems to flow so naturally. Why is that? Turns out underneath all this bobbing and weaving of harmonic motion is a very traditional and basic progression that leads us back to the top of the last A section. And now for a little history and tradition. Say you're a songwriter back in the 1930s or 40s, and you're writing a Tin Pan Alley type pop song, and probably a AABA 32 bar thing. You have an 8-bar bridge, and you want to set the easiest progression to make your way back to the last A section. You'll probably do what we call a rhythm changes bridge, or some variation thereof, referring to a common form seen in countless standards and jazz tunes, borrowing from the bridge chord progression of George Gershwin's song I Got Rhythm from 1930, hence rhythm changes bridge. Basically, it's 4 dominant 7th chords, each resolving down a 5th, so that by the end of the 8-bar bridge, you end up resolving back to the 1 chord for the last A section. Remember, the first chord of the A section in this song is an F chord. So we'll temporarily think of it as a temporary 1 chord. Think of it as a temporary 1 chord, the actual 1 chord in this song being C minor. To get that series of 4 dominant 7th chords to land on F, you start a third away. The third chord of F would be an A chord, so A dominant 7. And here it is. James starts the bridge on this A dominant 7, resolving to a D chord, then to a G7 chord, just like I Got Rhythm, but it sounds nothing like. The A7 becomes, the D7 becomes, the G7 becomes, then that little detour to lead us to the same thing a half step down. And you think we've left off from I Got Rhythm, but nope, back to the traditional 3-6-2-5. Except James substitutes the 5 or C dominant 7 with the G flat 7th chord, a common tritone substitution for the 5-7. And here's our resolution to the F minor, the first chord of the last A section. Now that was the bridge progression, but the bridge melody also brings us some more particularly colorful bastard notes.
Yo, why the color notes got to be bastards? Some racist bullshit.
Wait, you were the one that brought up...
Go on, man. Go on.
At the A7, we have these melody notes. I'll include the C, even though it doesn't hit on the A7 chord, but we hear it as connected because it's all one melody. When we play these first 4 notes all together over the A7, we get this awesome sound. So, all color tones except for the last 2, the D and the C sharp, D being a passing tone. The A is not even a color tone on a D major 7, but it's greatly affected by the A sharp an octave underneath it. Then immediately that same A becomes the 9
color tone
of G7 sus. Like in the A section, these melody notes are 11ths. Then on the word try, the melody is the 13th on the E flat 7 sus. The other vocalist singing harmony is on the 9th, moving to the flat 9th.
color tones.
Then of course the next 2 bars are a repetition transposed down a half step. This final phrase of the bridge, as is the whole song for that matter, is simply in a C minor tonality. C minor pentatonic, in fact. In light of this, it seems funny that we're talking about the melody notes being color tones as if they're special or outside of the key or something. Is it that the color is coming from the chord tones and not the melody? Not trying to confuse, it depends on context and perspective. Vertically, looking at each note with each chord one at a time, the melody notes are color tones in relation to each chord. If you're only looking at the melody notes in relation to the C minor tonality, all the melody notes sit right in C minor with no special color or tension. What's happening is simply a matter of harmonizing to achieve the color tones. In this song, we see a predominance of melody notes hitting on the color tones within the harmonic progression. If you want to be deliberate about getting the most harmonic richness and color in your compositions, this is one way to do it. Once you establish your melody, you would then craft the harmony so that the melody notes are hitting on the 9th, the flat 9th, the 11th, the sharp 11th, or the 13th, the extensions of the chords. And that's not to suggest that songs where the melody is mostly chord tones are not beautiful, but this technique brings a certain sound and feel to the music. It's good to experiment with it, check it out, see how it makes you feel. What I find so interesting about this song and others like this that James wrote is how he would take a simple, soulful melody and dress it up with colorful, sophisticated harmony, transforming what just would regularly be a simple bluesy sound into something much more fresh and uplifting. Soulful yet elegant, just like the man himself. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought of this video, and if you enjoyed it, by all means go ahead and click that. Please subscribe for more content to come. We'll take it out on the last A section.
'Cause life is short.